Okay, we're going to get started. It is my pleasure to introduce your moderator today, Dr. Susan Wolff, CEO and Dean of Great Falls College of MSU. She's a lifelong educator and has been focused on workforce development for her entire career, and we're very thankful that she is going to take over and moderate this esteemed panel of educators talking about some of the solutions to our workforce development challenges. Thanks, Susan.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. So I'm so glad that a person by the name of Dick Anderson came back into the room, because I was going to go out and get him, and whether he was kicking and screaming or not, because I want to talk about him. We've been the last 2 days really focused on how we build Montana's workforce. And if we don't do that and have the highly skilled workforce doing the things we need to do, our economy is going to suffer, and we don't want that certainly to happen. I'll introduce our panel members here in just a moment, but there are just a couple things I want to talk about. We're looking at one solution at a time, one student at a time. Now, I want you to think about that word student. And typically, you're going to think that's somebody that's in a formalized classroom, be it K-12, be it higher education. But a student is really anybody who is wanting to learn, whether it's on the job, whether they're seeking that out themselves. So please keep that in mind, that the word student doesn't necessarily mean somebody in a formalized setting. So 2-year education in the state of Montana, I want to talk about that for a minute, because we are part of your solution to having the workforce that you need. Part of our mission, a very strong part of our mission, is what we call community development, and that includes workforce development. It includes working with our economic development partners. And we not only have our credit programs, but we also do customized training. And let me give you 2 different examples. One of those being Dick Anderson Construction. So 4 years ago, Mr. Anderson really wanted to skill up his workforce. He knew it was important to retain the workers that he had. He wanted to grow their skill levels. And also, by investing in those employees, they were more likely to stay working for him. So we developed a program with him, and I'm going to say that it was his supervisors, it was Dick himself, it was Annie Chase, met with our faculty, with our administrators, and they created this program that did turn into a registered apprenticeship program. But what is really important is there are 4 levels of training in that program, again, developed by the company, because they start out and they go, okay, these people are really getting it, we want to move them up. And then we want to move them up, and we're going to invest in them. 4 different levels. So Dick Anderson Construction pays $300 per person, but the employee has to pay $100. So they have skin in the game as well. So think about that as business owners. How can you invest in your employees? And I'm very excited to say that the program has expanded from Helena. We've started in Bozeman, I think 2 years ago, Great Falls a year and a half ago, and now in Missoula. So he's going statewide with this program, and we're using faculty from different colleges, Highlands down in Butte, and again, working at their direction. And the 2-year institutions, that's what we do, is we want to work with our business people, say, what do you want? Come in, let's develop what is needed, and we're going to deliver that. We just graduated 5 apprentices. Oh gosh, that was in the fall sometime, wasn't it? Yeah, so I really want you to ask some questions of him when we're done with the panel, because I think he's really got something going. The other example was the city of Great Falls. So they were short 8 paramedics. And, we all want enough paramedics, right? Because we all know that there might be a health event. I read in the local paper where one of the firefighters was getting training in Boston, and I thought, what the heck? I have a paramedic training program. So called the city manager, the fire chief came and met with me, and he said, well, your program is 2 years long. We can't afford to have them off engine for 2 years. I said, we do customized training. So they met with the faculty, and in 2 weeks we had a program developed. 7 months later, we had 8 paramedics sitting for their national boards. So we now have our paramedics. So that's how the 2-year colleges can help you grow your workforce. One more story, and then I'm going to introduce the panel. We were hearing about how we need to get younger people, like in middle school, maybe even the higher grades in elementary, starting to think about their career paths. So we work with United Way of Cascade County, the local school district, and other entities in Great Falls, and we have what we call 7th grade tours. We had a young woman who went through that. She looked at all of our healthcare programs and she decided she wanted to be a surge tech. Now, she was a 7th grader. So as soon as she was 16 in high school, she started taking dual credit classes, so that by the time she came into our Surge Tech program, she already had some of her general education courses done, and now she's employed as a Surge Tech. That started in the 7th grade. So I think that's really an important thing that we do. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Kelly Cresswell. She is the executive director of Reach Higher Montana, and she can speak about that a little bit. But what she's really going to talk to us about today is Helena Wins. And that's where the business people of Helena said, gosh, we need to get involved with our K-12 system, with our higher ed system, because again, we need to build our workforce. So Kelly will be speaking about those things, which is very exciting. In the middle is Kylie Stupka. I had the pleasure of meeting her yesterday. She's with Youth Entrepreneurs. It's a national program and very much based on experiential learning, project-based learning. In other words, students are learning by doing. They're not being lectured to, they're being given opportunities to jump in, to learn, to fail, to jump in again and learn in a different way. Very, very exciting, and they're growing quite rapidly in the state of Montana. So Kylie, it's so fun to get to know you. And then Carina Beck on the far right, she's a colleague of mine at Montana State University. She's the director of the Allen Yarnell Student Success Center. And I get to hear her reports quite often at University Council, and it's such a pleasure. And she's going to talk about the Hilleman Scholars. Maurice Hilleman, she'll tell you more about him, from Miles City, Montana. He was in high school about the same time my mother was in Miles City. And he became one of the world's leading vaccinologists. Miles City, Montana. Very important fellow, coming from very humble beginnings. And so they're doing some amazing things to generate interest in learning more and supporting people who sometimes don't have things at home. They don't have the mentors. They don't have the role models. It might be really hard for them to be successful. They have figured this out. So it is my pleasure to welcome them. They're going to go ahead and give a brief description of what they do. And then we'll be asking some questions. I'll be asking them, and then we'll turn it open to the audience. So thank you very much. So Kelly.
All right. I'm Kelly Cresswell. I'm the Executive Director of Reach Higher Montana, which is a nonprofit based here in Helena that works statewide to help students strategically pursue educational opportunities after high school. So we provide a number of online resources, scholarship resources, but I think some of our most valuable resources are our outreach staff that work primarily with smaller schools throughout the state of Montana. They work very closely with school counselors on any curriculum or opportunities that they have to help students explore all of those career pathways that are available to them, how they might braid together the many resources that are available to help them pursue whatever it is that they hope to do after they leave high school. But as Susan said, that's not what I'm here to talk about. In one of my volunteer roles, I'm the co-chair of Helena Wins, which is Workforce Innovation Networks. It's the Helena Area Chamber of Commerce Workforce Development Initiative. And I say I'm the co-chair because I started this work with Kirk Lacey, who was at that time the dean of Helena College. And when Kirk left for a new opportunity, I didn't get another co-chair, but I'm hopeful. So I'm sticking with the co-chair moniker.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kylie Stupka. I came in from Wichita, Kansas with Youth Entrepreneurs. Very happy to be here. For those of you who are not familiar with Youth Entrepreneurs, we started in a much different place nearly 29 years ago, but we think of ourselves as a fast-paced startup. We've been in Montana for 18 months because in October of 2015, my board chair came to me and said, you know what, this is working. It's working in Kansas when you've got 30% of our grads that are starting businesses. 99% were graduating high school and staying in college, going into college and staying in college, which is something. We're getting people into college, but they don't stay, especially that higher risk population that has to deal with maybe raising their brother, raising their sister, getting back to the farm, whatever that looks like. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing, but these students have stick-to-itiveness to allow for them to then go back into whatever situation they're in and continue to create value. So our curriculum then has now been in Montana again for 18 months. One of the things that was exciting to me as I was kind of looking at our Montana numbers, I'll say we're looking at our Montana numbers because that October 2015 board meeting that led to our growth to today being now in 32 states. Montana's been our fastest growing state. You've embraced us. You've been very excited about what you see in our grads and in our students. You know, one of the things I heard in the previous conversation was, you know, how do we change the mindset of employers? Well, you change the mindset of employers through their employees, learning how to challenge and learning how to have that stick-to-itiveness, right? So our 8 foundational values that kind of counter or found that, again, they are the pillar for the youth entrepreneurs curriculum. We look at them as a management style. They are based on a management style, a style that says, listen, we have to be agile. How agile is it to create a paramedics program just in a 2-hour meeting? And you don't hear that in higher ed. So Montana is agile and they want to be innovative. And our students want to figure out how to solve your problems. We look at entrepreneurship as solving problems for profit. We create and support resources for educators. Our customer is the educator. The educator paired with the community can do wonderful things. That's another way to influence your employer, is allow for educators to be working with employers and businesses and communities so that employers and businesses and communities know what the students are looking for. It's not rocket science, right? Not only then do we have employers that are understanding how it is they need to hire and change their hiring, but we have educators that are understanding what employers are embracing, that agility that is necessary to grow, that are influencing their students, that understand how creating value for themselves, which is, we all have self-interest, right? Creating value for themselves is how you create value for others, going into a community and growing a community. We really do feel like we have the power to improve workforce. We have the power to ensure that people are critically thinking and problem solving, something that employees aren't seeing in their students. We're doing, again, through economic thinking and entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurs, 30% starting business, that's only a part. We want them to come to work for you, grow you, challenge you, get you to think differently so that Montana's a different state in 10 years. Again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we're super excited. Our educators are number one. That's another thing. I'm just going to bring it up real quickly. Educators, the state of Montana is one of your largest employers. Educators are typically in the public system, employees of the state of Montana. You're having a hard time getting them, retaining them, and attracting them, as is everybody across the nation, because they're not given the value that they need to be given. They're not given the support that they need to be given. They're not given the kudos. They're not giving the stature. They are creating and preparing your future, correct? Right? And so we want to be that force that says, listen, you are the most important profession in the most important industry to save our economic development systems. We're going to support you. We're going to bring you in. We're going to make you want to be back in that career that you chose because you knew you could change lives. And that's what's happening through and with the Youth Entrepreneurs Program. We'll learn more throughout the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Montana Chamber of Commerce, Todd and Matt, for hosting this discussion as we think about how we in education might be able to create really meaningful and viable solutions, particularly based on the discussion that we had. And Susan, thank you for moderating the panel. It's an honor to be able to work at Montana State University, your public land-grant university, as we think about how can we have more people create a better future for themselves and their communities. And as a public land-grant university, we take that work very seriously. So about 5 years ago almost, President Cruzado and I had the pleasure of having a conversation to say, what might we do? What might we do to do more for Montana and more for our students and to include more people in higher education? For their benefit, but also for the benefit of our communities in our state, right? It's a real progression for the benefit of the students, but also their communities and the state. So as we had that conversation, we thought a lot about Dr. Maurice Hilleman, and Susan gave you, I think, some great insight on his story. But just very briefly, born in Miles City, Montana, Depression era, right? That idea of growing up during the Depression. And his twin sister died at childbirth. His mother died 2 days later. talk about adverse childhood experiences from the very beginning. So his beginning wasn't what we would describe as perhaps the best, but with that comes resiliency. With that comes a capability to create solutions from problems. He graduated from Montana State College at the time with 2 degrees, chemistry and microbiology, went on to the University of Chicago, one of the best institutions in the country from a research standpoint. In his biography, they said that Paul Wolff wrote that he actually lost weight in graduate school because he could only afford 1 meal a day. But he had this sense of purpose, this sense of drive, this sense of passion for he could make the world a better place. Again, a man from Miles City, Montana, who, by the way, leveraged his expertise in poultry production. So as we talk about all the skills that we as Montanans have, leveraged his skills with poultry production to really understand how to create vaccines and bring them to market at a mass scale. Could have stayed in higher education, super. He would have probably revolutionized the world in his own way at the University of Chicago or some other institution. But instead, he went on to Walter Reed and eventually landed at Merck Pharmaceuticals, where in industry, he is credited with saving more lives than any other person last century and counting from Miles City, Montana. 1 billion people and counting from Miles City, Montana, right? And when we visit with our friends at Merck, they will tell us that there is only one Maurice Hilleman. There are people who, Salk and Pasteur and others who have done great things in science, but there was one Maurice Hilleman who created 40 vaccines. Saved humans and also animals. He was very interested in animal health as well. So let's back up and talk about why are we doing this. We really honestly believe there are many more Maurice Hillemans in Montana, a lot more. And what we need to do is try to engage with our students, try to engage with our communities and say we want more of you and not less of you. So let's talk about access, let's talk about excellence, and have you think about your future in multiple spans in higher education. And how can we get that conversation started? How can we keep you in school? How can we engage your mind? And this idea of projects of consequence so you can have an impact. Thank you.
So thank you, panelists. Kelly, talk to us more about Helena Wins. What businesses are involved? What are some of the projects, some of the goals, and successes you've seen, or maybe some areas where, gee, that didn't work the way we thought, but we're going to try it a different way?
Absolutely. Thanks, Susan. Helena Wins is organized around 4 primary industry sectors. So we're focused on information technology, healthcare, manufacturing, and construction. And like you, Susan, I'm really glad that Dick Anderson is in the room because it's Annie Chase from Dick Anderson Construction who leads our construction sector. It's Jessica Hayes from Boeing who leads our manufacturing sector. We have leadership from Carroll College and Pureview Health Center that lead our healthcare initiative. And we're still working on our information technology sector. I would say that has been an area that has been a little bit of a challenge, finding an employer champion for that particular sector. It's challenging because we have businesses that are solely IT in the Helena community, but I don't think there is a business in the Helena community that doesn't use IT to some degree and isn't having difficulty finding people to fill those jobs. But we have some projects in the work that maybe I'll talk about a little bit later around IT. We've had several great successes. Again, kudos to the folks who are leading those industry sector groups. Some of the industry-specific things that we've done that have been really successful are some manufacturing day events, in particular targeted towards students at transition points. So we had a manufacturing career night last year that was focused on 8th grade students who were just about to start filling out their coursework plans for their high school pathway. We believe that there's a number of students in Helena that maybe aren't aware of the awesome opportunities that they have within our high schools in the manufacturing sector. First of all, the instructors are absolutely top-notch. At Capitol High in particular, many of those students graduate with several industry-recognized credentials. Boeing supports those students to a great degree as they transition to Helena College to continue their education. There's lots of great things going on, and we believe that students and their parents also may not be fully aware of what those opportunities look like. So we've had those events. We have another one coming up at the end of January, our second one, and we've expanded that to include students who maybe have already started high school, so they may not be able to fully take advantage of all of the things offered in the manufacturing space in high school, but they could certainly start in that direction. So I think that will be another great event. We also held our very first Building Helena from the Ground Up event. So if you've attended Digger Days in Belgrade or Missoula Under Construction, if you'd raise your hand if you've been to one of those. They're really cool events, and we want one in Helena, so we started one. It started very small. We picked a day last May to do this event, and we had several industry representatives bring in hands-on activities for students to experience in the construction field. We had a terrible weather day, as happens sometimes in May, but fortunately, we had bussed in fifth graders from all across the Helena area to participate in this event, and they loved it. They had so much fun experimenting with some of the things that folks brought in. Dick Anderson's folks brought in virtual reality and showed them how they could walk through the model of some of the new schools in Helena that Dick's company was part of building. Lots of really cool things. We had Northwestern Energy and the 811 program who set up a simulator for finding live wires underneath a piece of AstroTurf. So it was a ton of fun, and the kids loved it. So we hope to do that again this year. Some of the things that we've done that I think are probably our biggest successes are not within those industry sector groups. They're cross-sector strategies. So we started a program last summer called the Helena Summer Jobs Program that worked with employers to hire student workers for a 6-week period in the summer. That was their commitment, for at least 25 hours a week and to pay them at least $9 per hour. The students, on the other hand, committed to complete employability skills training that was offered by Reach Hire Montana. They received a small stipend for completing that training, but that offered some assurance to the employers that were bringing these students on that they had been exposed to the expectations of how one behaves in the workplace and how you move through that. There were lots of really great successes from our first year doing the Helena Summer Jobs Program. We placed just over 30 students across 17 employers. And these kids were amazing. We had 2 students hired by MBAC, our local economic development agency, who did 3D modeling of downtown Helena. And if Brian Obert were here, I don't think he is, so I'll put words in his mouth, but he actually did say this. He said that he was so impressed with those students, and not only their technical abilities, but their abilities to assimilate into their work environment and to get the job done. He actually kept on one of his students through the remainder of the summer, and I believe he's still employed at MBAC. We had another young lady who was hired by Pureview Health Center to shadow their dental hygienist and to be somewhat of a quasi-dental assistant. This was a young lady who was 15 when she started in the program, wasn't sure she wanted to go to college at all, and after her 6-week experience shadowing at Pureview Health Center and doing some age-appropriate tasks in that particular space, has decided she wants to be a dental hygienist. So it was really awesome. We also offered intern bridge training for employers. In the last session, there was a question about what is being done to help employers rethink how they onboard new employees and help them be successful. And that's basically the purpose of the intern bridge training, and we will be doing that again this spring. So those are some of our highlights that we're pretty excited about so far.
Thank you. So, Kylie, I have to tell you, after being with her yesterday, I'm surprised she's still seated. A very high energy woman, very enthusiastic, but she said, I think I can do that for this period of time. So tell us more. I mean, we actually did a learning exercise yesterday as the Montana Chamber Board, and it was just awesome. And you know what our prize was? It was bouquet caramels from out of Bozeman. So, you know, we worked really hard for those.
Yeah, so you walk into it, basically Youth Entrepreneurs is supporting educators in schools, right? And not just in schools, in community settings. How can we get to the homeschools? How can we get to the church basements? We're supporting the educator, the facilitator. We're supporting that person that can scale these ideas, our 8 foundational values, which are all values that I think we all would embrace, and especially when you're kind of looking again towards some sort of a management philosophy or management style. Taking personal responsibility, being principled, having knowledge, using sound judgment, looking for a win-win focus, all of those things, right? So this is done through experiential activities. So if you were to walk into, say, a traditional youth entrepreneurs classroom, you might see something like, first of all, walking in and being paid to be there through youth entrepreneurs fiat currency. That fiat currency I've seen trade in the hallways for more than the traditional dollar, more than a real dollar, which leads to an economics lesson in currency exchange rates, the value of the dollar, all kinds of lessons, right? You'll be given the fiat currency. You could potentially be given something to think about throughout the class period to speak out on your way out, because how important are those soft skills, right? So first of all, you're likely greeted with a handshake. You're likely greeted with a kind of a eye-to-eye, welcome to my classroom. I respect and trust you as an individual. You are here today for us to determine your innate ability. You are here today for us to determine how it is you embrace ideas and problems and can solve those problems, because I agree. You've got your next Hillman in this state, and we want to help vet who that might be. I think there's many, many, many more than one. We look at all of our students are geniuses in something. They are put on this earth to create value. We just have to figure out what that value is. Then you might sit down and you might be given reams of paper to start to build paper airplanes in our paper airplane factory. And what you're going to learn from your paper airplane factory experience are things like rapid prototyping. You're going to understand how it is you need to rapid prototype in a group to ensure that you can launch your paper airplane in your test pilot, in your test launch, furthest and longest, to be paid for that, again, with fiat currency. That fiat currency then accumulates, and potentially by the end of the week, month, whatever it is in certain classrooms, you then will have an auction in your classroom with which you can leverage your fiat currency to purchase things such as hot Cheetos. Who knew? Slim Jims. I heard that Slim Jims were really pretty popular here in Montana. We are creating a market. We're teaching about markets. We're teaching about value. We're teaching about all of these things that we feel makes a society thrive and flourish in this youth entrepreneurs classroom. We're really pushing risk-taking, creative, intelligent risk-taking. We're pushing this ability to, yes, please let me solve your problem, but don't come down on me when I fail. How many times do you walk into a classroom in the traditional school system and you're told, do not fail? You can't fail. That is an F. You walk into a youth entrepreneurs classroom and you're told, please fail, and then fail again, and then pivot. But if you fail twice on the same thing, that's on you, and that's not allowed. But learn, fail, do. Pop up a market, create a product, sell the product. We'll invest in you to sell that product. You'll pay us back. You'll keep the money, and then let's talk about what you're going to do. Investing, saving, and finance. We think we have a financial literacy curriculum. We have an economics curriculum. We're teaching entrepreneurship. But really what we're teaching are those skills to allow for you to be the challenger of the employer that you go to work for, and to ensure that you then are changing the trajectory of wherever community, in whichever community you're working, so that we are developing a robust workforce that it believes in creating problems and is looking for the next problem to solve, and is creating then again this gap that I keep hearing is happening not only in Montana but across all of our states. I stayed seated.
Thank you. I told you she has lots of energy. So, Carina, tell us more. Tell us some of your student success stories of the Hillman Scholars that we've had, 4 classes now? Or 4 who have gone through. And let's hear about their success and where they are today. And, some of those things that will really show the importance of this program.
Great. Thanks, Susan. It's such a delight to be able to share the stories of the Hillman Scholars, and you will learn from one in the next panel. Jenna Barker is here from Conrad, Montana, who's just doing amazing things at school as a leader, and is also teaching us how to think about how do we view education so we support more students. So let's talk about a few of the success stories that we've had. We've had our first group of graduates. We had 3 incredible young men graduate in 3.5 years. Think about that. 3.5 years, graduated from Montana State University. That statistic is powerful for a few reasons. One, they beat the average by a long shot in terms of graduating in 3.5 years. And for those of you who are, enamored with higher education data, and really who isn't, right? 3 young men to graduate early is also terrific. And so one of them will go on to computer science and working in the state with his computer science degree. A second graduated in the College of Agriculture, and he is flirting with the idea between going back to the family ranch or working in agriculture advocacy. And our third scholar is now an anesthesia technologist at Bozeman Hospital, and he plans to go on to medical school and is working to apply to medical school now. I'm sure he'll get in based on his GPA, but also what he's given back to the community and the fact that he wants to go back to rural Montana and be a physician in rural Montana. So those are 3 success stories we're very proud of.
So talk to us about, because you have a summer academy where you bring everybody in. So describe how you do this and what kinds of support that you provide these students.
Thanks, Susan. So we begin the Hillman Scholars Program every year with what we call the Summer Success Academy. And it's a 5-week-long program. We consider it to be an academic boot camp in many ways. And the idea is that we try to ensure that students have a sense of what it will take to be successful at college. So they take heavy math, and they also take a class called Education, the World of Work in You. First, I want to visit about math. What we do and what we've learned is that everyone can learn math. And there's this fear that math can be, only some people can do math. What we've learned is it's how we teach math and how we engage the mind with math. And so we'll work with the students based on where they place in math, and then from there we say, let's move forward. We will teach 1 semester of math in 4 weeks. Think about that, 1 semester of math in 4 weeks. And what we work for is math mastery. We will have several students, in fact, Jenna's one of them, who will take a year's worth of math in 4 weeks. So if we rethink how we teach, and if we engage the student with how we teach math, and let them, just unleash, go. Let's do this together. Let's be creative with this. It's amazing what can happen. Then we pair that program with a course called Education, the World of Work in You. And this really dives into what we're talking about with skills development and understanding what might be possible. And we have a blend of people from the Montana community who come in and do panels with the students. We call that our Lessons in Leadership. So they learn from leaders in Montana. As we think about some of the work that Leadership Montana has done, we've tried to replicate that model and have our students learn from people who care about education, who care about entrepreneurship, who care about business, and learn from them and get them excited about that. We talk about our growing populations and our declining rural populations and what they might do with that information. And we build this in a 4-week frame where they're up at 7 o'clock in the morning going for breakfast together. They're reading the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Economist, the Billings Gazette, or any other paper that they want to bring, and it's their choice. And then they talk about those issues over breakfast. We're trying to create engaged citizens. And then they continue throughout the day with taking their math class. They break for lunch. They go on to Education, the World of Work in You. They do some very extensive tutoring and reviewing of their work, and then they are exhausted, as are their mentors. Lights out at 10 o'clock-ish, and then repeat the next day. And in 4 weeks, we have students who are prepared to not only engage in their classes, but also begin that important work of being a leader. Because they've had the advantage of 4 weeks of school ahead of their other incoming freshman classmates. And so now we challenge them to begin to lead and work with their peers that are coming in that need some support and direction.
So I'd like to ask the panelists to kind of give us one more tidbit about the program that you have, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
Start? Okay. what we're really excited about right now is an opportunity that was presented to us by the New America Foundation to pilot youth apprenticeships. We applied for this funding in partnership with Billings Works. So Helena Winds and Billings Works are collaborating together on this opportunity. We would like to pilot youth apprenticeship opportunities in information technology and healthcare. The youth apprenticeship model works just like any other registered apprenticeship model. So as I listened to Matt's presentation on the data from the Chamber's workforce survey, I saw that increasing opportunities for registered apprenticeships was one of the possible solutions. The youth apprenticeship model is really cool, and it would be a great way to do that. I have more information if anyone wants to see me afterward. It's a model that's maybe new to Montana, but it's certainly not new in other places. It's based off of a European model that's been in place for probably a couple hundred years. Even states near us do this very, very well. We've had the opportunity to learn from an organization in Colorado called CareerWise Colorado. Sorry, lost my words for a minute. On how their model works, and they have seen great success with it. So the youth apprenticeship model is really a 3-year commitment. Students who have shown some natural proclivity or interest for information technology or healthcare take the classes that they can while they're in high school for dual enrollment credit. They are employed by their sponsor. They work fewer hours during the school year. They work more during the summer, and their balance between work and school time shifts as they complete their youth apprenticeship. It's been highly successful in other places that have done this, and we're anxious to pilot it. We hope to have our first youth apprentices starting this fall. It'll be a small number, probably 2 to 4 in each community, so we can figure out how this works. There will be intermediary support services so that employers do not have to be the one who goes back and forth with the school and the student on logistical items, or go back and forth with the process of registering for the apprenticeship with Department of Labor. We've got a network of partners who are engaged in this work, and we're really excited to see it move forward. So if you'd like to talk more about that, let me know.
I guess I'll make my last tidbit Montana statistics. We've been extremely fortunate in the last 18 months to be able to partner with 40 educators. Our goal is to expand across the entire state of Montana. I've been working very much with Liz Markey and Jim Masker. They've been amazing. You'll get to hear from a couple of our educators and students and how they've incorporated the youth entrepreneurs, curriculum activities, and experiential learning opportunities in their classrooms. I will say that you don't have to adopt a full-blown youth entrepreneurs class to leverage our resources. Our support is there for all of you. 18 months into the program, Montana is 120 classrooms strong. Of a total 630 fully supported classroom, 1/6, 18 months in of a 29-year relationship is pretty impressive. Montana's embraced us, and the Chamber's really excited to help us continue to grow. So we really do appreciate the state and the support, and we're excited to be here and to do more, and happy to answer your questions. Thanks.
Great. We will leave you with a one-pager on the Hilleman program, and there's a few things that I'd like to describe or make sure that we leave you with knowing where we're going with this program. The first is, as you look at the map on the document, you'll see that there's a real intentionality to make sure we identify a Hilleman scholar in every community that we can. And so we're trying to have a strong geographic representation across Montana. We think that's critical. The second thing that you should know is that the program really is interested in students with great potential. So students that have Pell eligibility, if they have a great high school GPA, super. If they don't, super. And we say that because we know sometimes high school GPA is a proxy for not having to work after school, not having to take care of a grandparent, not having to take care of a sibling. And sometimes a lower high school GPA is a proxy for that, and we don't want to lose that potential. And so know that your public land-grant university cares very much about that, and we're trying to make sure that we have more students from Montana participate in education. With that, we have a 4-year program. And the program is defined like this. The first year, we want to make sure they have an excellent start with their university and education experience. So we're teaching them how to learn how to learn. And frankly, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm still learning how to learn. So it's a real privilege to think that way. The second year, we get them involved in an internship or a research experience. Those power skills or soft skills that we've been talking about today, we want to make sure our scholars are really understanding those and getting a nice, fresh experience to look at them, but also learn and be mentored with them. Third year, they're learning about the world around them, and we're having them thinking about a global frame. So thinking about Montana, of course, but thinking about the world around them globally. Fourth year, we're asking them to give back to their Montana communities. So this year, this spring, we're going to have several Hilleman scholars go out to their Montana communities, talk about the program, talk about the power of education, talk about what they hope to do in terms of a project of consequence. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I was thinking back to the dual credit welding program that we have at Great Falls College, MSU, and with our local public schools, and that's where high school students take their high school classes during the morning, come to the college in the afternoon for 6 hours, and then they will leave with a welding certificate of applied science a month before they get their high school diploma, and then go out into the world of work. But I was talking with David Smith a while ago with the Montana Contractors Association, and he said, what if we asked our employers in Montana to say, look, go to school for half a day, come to work for me half a day? How many of you would be willing to do that? Because it will take all of us to build the workforce that we need. So that's just another thought that we can have. So now we'll open it up for questions, and Bridger will have the microphone. So raise your hand and let the people know who you want to speak with. Thank you.
I've got a question to start off with. So one of the things that was identified, in fact, one of the leading issues that was identified in our employer survey was there is a gap between what the education community is providing students, particularly in the soft skills arena, and what employers want. And it's, the responsibility, the showing up on time, the communication skills, some of those sort of soft skills. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from students that have entered the program that may have been, each one of your programs, that may have been lacking in those, and how you've seen them evolve to what you see as they come out of it, and how it addresses that gap that employers have identified as a real problem coming out of the education community?
Sure. I'm happy to begin. One thing that we often say to students is at MSU, and I think we all feel this way, but at MSU we research a lot of things. We work really hard to understand and shape challenges and problems in the world in a new frame, but we're terrible at reading minds. And the idea that we are expecting someone to read our mind in terms of how to be excellent in the workforce is something that we're trying to teach our students, that they can't read minds, but they can ask questions. They can build habits. They can learn what we teach them. And so that's been a really important part of our learning with the program, is that we want to instill this idea of these are benchmarks, these are expectations, we're going to teach you these things, and from there we hope you build and you grow forward. So that idea of being available and showing up on time, 7 a.m. in the morning for the Summer Success Academy, that's an important skill that they've learned. And then they learn the importance when you are there on time, what you learn and what you gain, versus when you're not there, you don't know what you've missed. And so our job is to continue to build off of that and grow that. We try to do that over a 4-year frame so that the student can really see the whole arc of their development, and we ask them to reflect on that.
Your question is kind of the crux of what we do, right? And again, we do it through the educators. I definitely want to emphasize that it's imperative that the educators leave to learn as much as it is the students leave to learn, right? And so if the educators are leaving to learn, one of the things that we're doing is creating a community of educators so that they can, learn from each other, but also learn from you, right? And so they're leaving to learn, they're going out and they're seeing what it is that they need to come back into their classrooms and create for their classrooms. And through our curriculum, they then are able to kind of leverage, again, a speak out card, right? A speak out card. You're going to come in and be given a card, and a card might tell you what it is you need to be thinking about through the class period, and at the end you're going to pitch on it before you leave, right? And so just small things that are allowing for communication. Every activity that we do has some sort of problem that needs to be solved. Problem solving, critical thinking, those are the two things that I hear are not necessarily being tackled when you're having to kind of complete the standardized testing requirements of each and every state, and not let alone kind of feds for fed grants and those types of things. Well, we're going to show you that you can create an answer to your standardized test when you're trying to develop your break-even point for your market day. Guess what you've just done? You've solved for X, you've done algebra. So the relevance around actual kind of hands-on learning and the relevance around how it is those parlay into what it is that you're going to need to know for that standardized test has been lost in certain of our education philosophies and ways in which we're doing things. We truly believe that when you're doing, you're embracing and learning and becoming excited. You have to collaborate so as to be able to ensure that all of the innate abilities, the comparative advantages of all of the individuals working on the project are leveraged. That requires communication. It requires critical thinking. It requires everything. In fact, I don't want any boxes being checked in our classrooms. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to evolve you, the individual, in creating the solution to the problem. Because guess what? You know what? I don't know the answer. We're learning alongside you as the educators. So giving the educators the freedom to fail as well as the students the freedom to fail is allowing for this real elevation of collective minds going together and solving problems. And I think, what you mentioned is exactly those 8 foundational values, that management style, that change in the way of thinking, that change in mental models that we know is not just a gap in Montana, it's a gap across everywhere. And I feel like, a little bit to blame is this kind of standardization, so we're going to break that mold as best we can.
So I've been thinking on your question, Todd, and I think the employability skills training that was a component of our summer jobs program was pretty eye-opening. Certainly there were students who probably still could use some help in that area. We had one young lady that thought an F-bomb was maybe an adjective, so we had to have a conversation about that. But more often, we had kids who really did understand and got it and did an exceptional job with understanding what was being asked of them, and then could demonstrate that in their summer employment experience. One of the components that was built into the summer employment program was a mentor pair that was made. It did not have to be somebody from the employer. We had employers of all sizes, and not all employers could have somebody available to be that student's mentor. So we engaged some community volunteers, provided them with some training, and they met with the students throughout that 6-week period, at least once a week, to reinforce the concepts that were taught in our employability skills training to see how things were going. And initially, some of the students were resistant to having a mentor. They didn't really think that they needed it. But by and large, at the end of the program, when we assessed, that was something that they really did value. And I would say, I feel like I need to speak up for our kids a little bit. I know lots of adults that could probably use our employability skills training, so maybe as much or more so. So it's not only these workers that are going to be joining our workforce soon if they're not already there, but I think it's something that needs to be communicated all the time, what it is that we expect. So to Carina's point, we can't read minds. We need to say what it is that we expect and what we need. The intern bridge training that I mentioned was a really great framework for thinking about how we line those things out. Everybody's busy, and I think it's easy to know what you mean in your head, but maybe not always stop to check and make sure that whomever you're talking to, especially if it's a young person, understands what it is that you're getting to. So that was a really great framework through Helena Wins that gave some really tangible tools that employers could use to be successful in that area.
So I want to thank our panelists. Let's give them a big round of applause, and thank you for your attention.
So we're going to move into our next panel, and one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to give an opportunity for the student voice. And we're hoping that we can maybe demystify students, if you will, right? I mean, you hear a lot of people talking and a lot of employers talking about, the young generation and they don't want to work, and they're stuck on their cell phones, and they don't have commitment to anything. And we know that's not true. It's a stereotype, and we know it's not true. And so we want to try to provide an opportunity to hear from students that may be students of some of these programs that we were just talking, and hear from them on how maybe the program has helped them, and maybe how they're seeing things through a different light because of their involvement either in FFA or going through the Hillman Scholarship Program or involvement in YE. And so that was what our goal was, is to try to listen to the students and perhaps ask some questions from them on how they view life from someone that is perhaps in the 15 to 20-year-old period of their life, and to allow us as employers to kind of get an idea of what this younger generation is thinking. And I want to be clear, too, is I think one of the things that, as a business community, we have a lot of responsibility to take in this challenge, right? I think the business community has woke up and suddenly discovered that we don't have a workforce that we can turn to, and so now we're kind of stuck in trying to figure out how are we going to suddenly fill that. And it's different than what we've seen in the recent past, maybe 10 years ago, when you put out an ad in a newspaper and you just sorted through the resumes that came, you had a handful of interviews and you picked the best student. Well, now we're in a workforce shortage. But what has the business community done to try to reach out to the education community to say, here's what our needs are, and here's what we're starting to run into? And so I think the business community has a significant responsibility in this challenge. It's not all on the education community, and we can't blame it all on the students. I think the business community has a significant responsibility in this challenge. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our next panel, and I'm going to introduce Courtney Kibblewhite, and she's going to moderate this next panel for us to give us an opportunity to hear from the students and their perspective of the business world and the programs that they're participating in, and how they think these sort of programs may help prepare them for the future outside of education. Courtney?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the program so far. I think that I drew the best stick of the pile, getting to be up here on stage with the students. Of course. Well, I guess let me introduce myself. My name is Courtney Kibblewhite. I'm with Northern Broadcasting. So we own Northern Egg Network and Northern News Network. So we, in our professional world, we're working on connecting people across the whole state. And I have to say, I'm a proud graduate of both FFA and BPA at the Huntley Project chapter. And now, as a business owner, I think more than GPA, more than anything else on a person's resume, we're not often hiring fresh out of college students, but I look for things like FFA and BPA and evidence that they've really practiced those soft skills that Todd was just referring to. So I think it's really exciting to get the voice of students and teachers at this table that we don't always often get in the business community. So first of all, thank you all for being here. We'll go ahead and get started, and I am going to point to the students a number of times. Can you imagine being on a panel with essentially your boss sitting right next to you? So I am going to make sure the students try and get their voice. And one other thing I'd say, Bridger's going to hate me for this, but as we go throughout this panel, if you have a burning question that you'd like answered, I don't mind if you interrupt. I've got questions that I think will help spur on the conversation, but feel free if there's something, raise your hand and I'll try and call on you. So let's go ahead to get started. I'd like we'll start on the end. I'd like each student to tell us who you are, where you're from, and about a 30-second elevator speech on the program that you're representing, and we'll have the advisors do the same. So go ahead.
I'm Avery George. I'm a senior from Twin Bridges High School. I have been in BPA for 4 years now, and I am representing youth entrepreneurs, and I have taken a class last year, and I am currently in one this year.
I am Kelsey Tadlock, and I am a junior at Sims High School. I am in FFA, and I am our chapter sentinel for the 2019-2020 school year.
My name is Jenna Barker, and I am in my third year at Montana State University, and I'm representing the Hillman Scholars Program. This program has made just a ginormous impact to my life, and I wouldn't still be in college without it because I've got support in the office financially and just help in general. And I've got a family on campus because of it.
My name's Jody Ketterba. I just finished my 25th year teaching, and I am a career and technical education teacher. I am certified in both agriculture education and industrial technologies. So I've had the pleasure of teaching everything from science, applied sciences in animal and plant science, to shop classes, from basic tools like hammers and chisels and screwdrivers, to technology like plasma cutters and laser engravers and CNC routers. I have been an FFA advisor for 25 years and involved in FFA since I was born, because my father is also an FFA advisor. Agriculture education is very different than most education programs in the fact that our students join us early on in their education. At Sims High School, students start as 6th graders. When I taught in Great Falls, they started as 9th graders, and we often have the same students clear through till their senior year. We get to know them both in class and out of class. We often travel with our students. I've had students travel with me to Indianapolis, Indiana for National Convention. I've had students travel with me for as long as 12 days. We get to know their parents. We get to know them, what their career goals are. We get to know what their likes, their dislikes are. And we often become their career advisors. I have sat across the dining room table from parents and argued with parents about whether their child should go to college, to a 2-year school, directly to work, argued with them about what was best for their kid, because in a lot of cases, we spend more time with their children than they do. And we're often looked down upon as teachers, but we have a huge influence on where those kids are going to go and what they're going to do with their future. And
Jody, I think we absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
You do have a huge influence on where they go, and appreciate you being here.
Something different for a career and technical educator.
Excellent. All right, Jody Sandrew.
Hi, I'm Jody, also Sandrew from Twin Bridges. I've been teaching 27 years, and last year I piloted Youth Entrepreneurs. And I just want to tell you, it gave me so much motivation, because my kids would race through the door to get to class, and now I don't want to retire, because I cannot tell you how much fun teaching in that style. And I'm thinking, okay, you're an employer, you're paying people to be there, so we've got to make this connection, because my kids want to be there all of a sudden, because I'm giving them these dollars, I'm paying them, but it's all about discovering, setting the passion that they have on fire. So, and then this year is the first year. I want you to know, too, that I have students who flat refuse to read textbooks, and it's all from technology. And so the trick here for me as a teacher is to find their passion. That's what you want. You want someone to work for you that wants to be there. But then you have to work with them, and you have to let them learn and grow with it. And YE has just been awesome.
Excellent. So let's, I'll kick this next question, Kelsey, to you to start out with. We have on one end of the town, you know, our business community or downtown, and on the other is the school. And the business community is saying, okay, we want a more developed workforce, better communication skills. So can you tell us about, in FFA at your school, how does FFA, in your mind, prepare you for the workforce? What do you think you're learning right now to be prepared for the workforce?
Well, in FFA, there are 27 different areas that you can compete in, and each competition teaches different skills, and anybody, no matter what they would like to do as a career after high school, can find something that they're passionate about, and the skills that they learn that will continue on with them I have benefited just from, since my freshman year, being involved and learning a lot of things. I've met people, I have made connections that will last me through college.
So the network is what you're focused on. Okay, great. How about at the university level? I guess what do you think that you're learning through the Helena Scholar Program that? And I realize you're a step further down the road than some of the high school students, but that's really focused on that element of preparing you for the workforce.
Well, my sophomore year, I participated in a mentorship program, so I mentored the incoming freshmen of Hillman's, and I was able to get to know them and develop skills of leading a team and being with them. And then this past year, I was the lead mentor for the Summer Success Academy, which meant I managed the mentor team basically and helped run the program. So I really learned not just the soft skills of working with the team and being responsible for kind of the direction that everything's going, but just general working ability.
All right, Avery, how about you? In BPA or in the youth entrepreneurship so far, how has it focused you or prepared you for the workforce?
So through BPA, you compete in multiple events, and you present some events you present in front of judges, so that really helps you focus on how to speak professionally and to adults, and it really helps you develop a good professional base for your future. And then through YE, we are all really competitive in that class. We all want to get the money, and so it really teaches you how to be competitive, and you have to be competitive in life if you want to get to where you want to be. So it really helps you build those skills and helps it put into your mind of how to do it properly.
Great. And how about advisors? What are the marketable skills that you're focused on instilling in your students to develop them?
All right, soft skills. I have a huge wall in my room that has 8 soft skills. So all of my students know what soft skills are. And I really have the last 2 years focused on professionalism, but the cell phone is a big problem. And every summer I tell those kids, don't bring your phone to work, And then the employers will come back to me and they go, started great, and then at the end they're playing video games. And I'm like, ah! But I think part of the problem here too is as employers, I know we have to work with those people, and I text my students all the time, but onboarding and telling the expectations is I want that phone locked up. You can use it on breaks. I mean, you have to communicate because it's part of them. And I've had to adapt. I've had to use it to my advantage. And so as an employer, work with them, and they'll use it to their advantage. I mean, they can look up stuff faster than you'll ever believe. They're way faster than me. I'd make them do all the dirty work now. Look this up. So please remember, cell phones, it is a problem, but use it to your advantage, but set your expectations, and it will work.
People ask all the time why I still teach, and I don't think, kids have definitely changed, but I don't think people have. And I think that people always live up to our expectations, and if we think they're going to be trouble, they are trouble. And if we think they're going to be wonderful, they are wonderful. And so if a group of kids walks into my room and I think these are going to be the best kids I've ever had, they are the best kids I've ever had. And I think that they will do the same thing for you as employees. If they walk through your door and you're like, hey, you are going to be my star employee, and you give them that expectation and you work with them in the idea that, hey, that is going to be the best employee you've ever had, they are going to be that best employee you've ever had. And I think it's that communication, that expectation, laying out those guidelines. And kids don't inherently want to be bad. I mean, they want to be successful. Nothing has changed over time since we were kids. I mean, they still want to be good.
their role model of good is just different than what we had. And so we have to help them see what that is.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about how each of you got involved in these programs. And I think even as an adult, time is one of our most precious resources. And I know in school there are so many different ways and activities that you can choose to spend your time in. So it's kind of a double-edged question here. How did you find out about the program, and why have you chosen to invest your time there? And anyone who's ready to answer, I won't put anyone on the spot.
I'll go. So BPA, both of my sisters did it when they were in high school, and it really interested me because of the business factor, because I would really like to start my own business one day. So the fact that I would be able to get a head start on the business side of things was really interesting to me. And then YE, it was actually Miss Andrew, she told me a lot about the class and how it was going to be a lot of hands-on learning, which I'm really interested in. And it's really the best way that I learn is through hands-on learning and really getting into the situations. So I was really interested in that class, and I decided to take it, and I have loved it. So I took another class this year.
FFA first caught my interest when I was around 7th grade. There was a middle school agriculture club that would come to my middle school on every Thursday, and just the activities that were being done. I remember we made our own ice cream, and that was something that really sparked my interest. And what kept me involved in FFA was just all of the wonderful opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise.
And Kelsey, if I can dovetail on that, I'm curious. We've been talking about FFA. And I know that many of us see the Blue Jackets and may associate that specifically with the agriculture industry. Is it just for farm and ranch kids?
No. There are 27 different areas that you can compete in, and each one they vary from flower arrangement to livestock judging, and anybody can find something that they are interested in and relate it to a competition in FFA.
Great. Thanks for clarifying there. Go ahead, Jenna.
Obviously, mine is a little different just because I'm at the university and this is a scholarship. So while I was in high school, I was involved in every club that I possibly could be in because I knew I wanted to go to college, but I knew that I needed a scholarship to get there. So I was involved in FFA, 4-H, Montana Junior Hereford Association, National Honor Society, like an anti-bullying club, everything. I just threw myself into every club that I could possibly be in.
You were one of those kids.
I was indeed. I was indeed one of those kids. And I was also the president of a lot of them my senior year and my junior year. So I found this, the scholarship is an invite because you do have to apply to MSU and you do have to be Pell eligible. So I got an invite in April or March from the program. And I'm in the second cohort of Hillemans. So there's only one cohort before me. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's fake. But there is another scholar from Conrad who I reached out to, and then 2 scholars that I knew through FFA that I reached out to that were in the first cohort to ask them about it, and they told me to apply, get into it, you can do it. So I applied. I got a call on May 19th in 2017, right before I graduated, saying that I was waitlisted. So I was like, heck, that's not good. And still was going, and then 2 weeks before the Summer Success Academy started, I got a call saying that there's a spot if you want it. And I did with what I did with high school, and I just jumped right in, and I have continued to do that while I've been in college.
So how do each of you talk to your peers about these programs, or how has any of the programs changed how you do relate to peers? I think at any stage of our life, but it's especially poignant as a teenager. Those relationships are so powerful for learning and growing and discovering who you are and maybe who you want to be. So tell us a little bit more about how do you talk to your friends about it? Do you get your friends to join, or what do other people think about these programs? Let's start with BPA and youth entrepreneurship.
So our school is actually really small, so pretty much everybody is involved in everything and anything that they can get into, just so that we're not.
For the room, what is small? How many people are in the school and in the classroom?
So in our whole high school, there are 64 students, and then in our whole school, there's like 130, I think.
But like a class, how many kids are in a class?
In my class, there's currently 18. So we're quite a small class. You know, everybody knows everybody. We're all friends with each other. So it's not really hard to, you know, make friends through it because your friends are already in it. And so all of my friends are in it. And it's not really like, we're not separated or anything. So we all get to do the same things and go on these trips and have fun together. And same with the classes, because we have a few electives where we do get to choose what classes we get into. So we are with, you know, freshmen or sophomores. And so you really get to have different perspectives with different people that aren't in your class and really get to talk to them about it.
Kelsey?
Well, similar to what Avery said, Sims High School isn't a large school by any means. And so a lot of kids, I have multiple class periods with some of my peers. And with FFA, there is a little bit of a stereotype that you do have to be a farmer and rancher. And that is probably the biggest thing that I have to deal with is everybody's like, oh, do you live on a farm? Do you live on a ranch? And it's just trying to break the boundaries and open up the realization that you can do a lot with FFA and being involved.
So how do those kids that make those comments, do you ever get any of them to join FFA or show up at a sales and service competition and see it's a lot more than, you know, working with livestock?
Well, a lot of that is asking people, especially upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors, if they would know what they want to do after high school. And with that, some of them will say a career, and there's usually a competition that relates pretty closely. And even if you aren't interested in competing, the life skills that you learn just from being involved and realizing that you have to be organized and have to have time management and skills that you will take anywhere you go in life.
Jenna, how about when you were in high school? Tell us a little bit about the programs that you were involved in and working with peers.
Well, with FFA, obviously there's the whole sows, plows, and cows thing that goes around with that. So just talking about how FFA is more than that, and there's job interview, there's public speaking, there's all of that involved. With the Hillman Scholars Program at MSU, I think we have two very different communication circles, because we do have our cohort of 50, which we live with for a month in a dorm in a hallway, and we spend every hour of every day with for 5 weeks, and we get very close, and we continue to work together all through our college career. My cohort this May is actually headed to France together, so it'll be pretty fun. But then we also have to talk to our peers outside of the program and just really get to know and kind of utilize the program, because we get, with the Yarnell Center, we have the opportunity to get to know the services on campus. And so across the board, I always advocate for my friends that aren't in the program to use the services like the financial education program or the career services or student success advisors, and just generally advocate to get involved.
So teachers, tell us a bit more about how you recruit students into these programs, or is it working with parents? Is it marketing to these high school students? How do you identify a student and pull them and get them involved, or is it all self-selection and they raise their hand?
Recruitment for me has always been, there's some that are obviously going to take classes. You know, you've got the kids that it's a family legacy and their parents were in the program, or they're, whatever. But I had the unique opportunity. I taught in Great Falls for 15 years, and Great Falls did not have an agriculture program. And so I started the agriculture program in Great Falls 10 years ago. 11 years ago now, and Electric City FFA was my baby, and I started that program, and it was very interesting to try to teach business and industry and education and parents what agriculture was, and for them to realize all of the support industry, not just production, that is part of the agriculture industry, In that 10 years, I saw the Ag Committee of the Great Falls Chamber of Commerce come back to life. And that segment of the Chamber of Commerce has been super active in the last several years, and that has been very helpful in the education and recruitment. And then this last year, I decided I wanted to be in a small school, and I moved out to Sims. And you would think in a small school, in a rural community, that every kid would take ag anyway. But we're finding that there's more and more kids that they live in the community. They might even live on a farm, but they don't do the work on the farm. And so we're still having to, they don't want to go back to the farm. It's hard work, it's physical labor, it's stuff that they don't want to do. They want to be involved in other industries, and to show them that agriculture is still in those other industries.
I'd like to say that I do live in a small school, so Class C schools do everything. They have to play on the basketball court, then go play the national anthem before the game starts. I mean, so I always bet my money on Class C kids because they work. I mean, they do everything. But so recruitment, but it's all about connections. So in the end, it's you as a boss. If you're connected to those you're with, you build something great. And that's why, I mean, Avery's graduating. I'm already sad. We build connections, and that's what's made my program so fun. The other thing is these programs like BPA, FFA are a prequel to college. And I'm so thankful my students are able to travel with me. They're able to see the forest instead of our little tree in Twin Bridges. And I just think that not only has it helped open their eyes to what's out there, it helps these kids when they get to college stay in college because they've had to meet people, they've had to go and travel. Just getting on an airplane, I always have a first-time flyer every year. So I'm so thankful that we have these programs because I really do believe they help kids stay in college or just build confidence. Even to move to Helena is frightening. From rural. And the last thing as employers, as I'm listening to all of this today, I'm like, okay, like we get 1,400 kids at BPA State. And colleges come there, but what we need is employers to come there too. And we need, more workshops. And we need you guys to really spark those passions in some of these kids that are looking at certain careers. Because not many of you come to Twin Bridges, and I would love it. But I don't have the money to bus you to to bus my kids to Helena. So maybe we can have the chamber work with our state BPA office and bring professionals in who can actually get in workshops with these kids. And I have kids that can build computers, but in Twin Bridges, they don't have a mentor. They're learning all online, and they're amazing. So I think we're on to something here, getting the chamber and these extracurricular clubs together.
And I think that is one of the key functions of the chamber is to unite these different groups. So so you bring up a great point on how students are interacting with the business and the work community outside of your school experience right now. What does that look like in Jenna? I guess you're at the university, maybe. And I think that's a good point too. Is a lot of our what may have been career counselors when you and I are growing up are now focused more on mental health issues. So tell us what's the reality? When do you actually get to work with people from the business community?
Well, I personally, so I go to school full time, and then I work about 25 to 30 hours a week during the semester, and then during the summer I work full time. So, I mean, personally, I just working with people that I've worked with, going to career fairs during the school year. There's one every semester, and I go every year and hand out my resume to a few people just so I can, and just network, really, at college is what I've done.
So how about at the high school level? Is there interaction with BPA and FFA built in with the business community, or is that something you have to pursue individually?
Well, I have been very fortunate in the fact that my job has allowed me to meet a lot of people. And along with FFA, there are career shows, and there is like college fairs that just to expose people my age to their possibilities after high school, not just being college.
Yeah, so during the summer, I work full-time. I work 7 days a week in Virginia City. So it's a tourist town, there's a lot of people coming through. Got all sorts of people from different places. I've met lots of people from all over. And with BPA, I was able to ask my boss if I could shadow him and understand the background of how to open a business and what it's like to have to order how much food you need for this. So I was able to get a little bit more of an understanding, and my eyes were really open to how much work there really is behind the scenes, because you do not, I don't know how he hasn't gone crazy yet, because, man, being in a tourist town where there's only 40 people that live there year-round, it's crazy how much work goes into having to just run this restaurant for 3 months of the year and have that be your main income.
So one of the areas the career and technical education has kind of tried to get us to do, we try to get speakers to come into our classroom, and obviously those of us who are in rural areas, through the use of social media and some of the technology, we've been able to have people Skype into our classes, and that has been really helpful. And it tends to be the younger generations. But my classes have Skyped with people in Washington, D.C. We Skyped with the corporate office of Tyson Foods. We Skyped with some of the government officials in Washington, D.C., and that opened the kids' eyes to some of the careers and some of the opportunities that were out there, gave them some opportunities to talk to some people who really had real jobs. Some of the bigger corporations are putting YouTube videos out there that are touring, their workplaces, and we can play those YouTube videos in our classes. It's hard to find Montana companies that have that information available for our kids to take a virtual tour of where they might be able to work. And so we have to show out-of-state jobs. And so if we have some virtual tours that we could show to our kids of Montana-based jobs, that would be really helpful. Mentors that our kids can go job shadow for a day. Teaching in a shop area, some of the paperwork of trying to get a kid to be able to go watch a welder for the day. The kids have to be 18 to get into the shop for the day. Well, high school kids aren't 18, so that becomes a legality issue, and it sounds great and everybody's on board until it really gets to the time that you get the kid all excited to go do the job shadow, and then you can't get them there. And so if we could figure out some ways to get some of those things to happen, it really doesn't cost money for any of us. It's logistic things. And if we could work together to get some of those things, I think it would be beneficial to all of us, that we could help get some of those bridges crossed.
Sure. What other disconnects do you see as either advisors or students between the needs of the business community and what you're experiencing? I think if you were here for the last panel, they talked a little bit about soft skills that many employers feel like we're missing. What other things are on your minds in terms of those disconnects?
So I was here for the survey earlier, and I actually, after that, I turned and looked at Carina and I said, "That's really funny. I learned resumes. I learned all of that through FFA and the programs that I was involved in. That's something that I did every day. And to this day, I still do resume critiques. I still do mock interviews. I still work and do all of those professional development things through the organization, the Hillman program, through my clubs. I'm in Collegiate FFA and the Agriculture Education Club at Montana State, plus Alpha Zeta. And that's something that we actively do at the university.
Anyone else? Other disconnects that you find, or maybe a chance to voice frustrations about perceptions that potential employers might have about you?
Yeah, so it's the generation gap, pretty much. Again, we're stereotyped as these kids that don't want to work and they're always constantly on their phones. But there are those kids out there that want to work and that are going to work hard. But you just have to spend the time looking for them. And, you know, they may not be, because people always focus on those kids that don't work and are just sitting there and just doing nothing, but the kids that are working hard are in the background, working their butt off, doing as much as they possibly can, trying to get, you know, connections. And so it's frustrating to be stereotyped and like, oh, you're one of those kids, so I'm just gonna brush you off, or I'm not gonna help you, like, oh, there's an older person, so I'm gonna help them first. You're just a kid, you're fine, you can wait, even though you got there 5 minutes before somebody else did. So it's frustrating because we're often overlooked, even though sometimes we may be more experienced in some areas. So.
I would agree with what Avery had to say in the way that a lot of jobs are being created or will soon be created for my generation when it is time for us to have a career. And a lot of new job opportunities aren't made aware to people in my generation. And people are still looking at the traditional, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, and there's just not a lot of information about all the opportunities that are really there.
So what other challenges are there to growing these programs? You know, you kids at this table are probably the star example, but how do we get the kids that may not have you know, an older sister who is in a program or may not have a parent that's supporting those decisions? Any thoughts about how we can pull in a larger group to see the results that you all are seeing in your programs? Teachers or students, feel free.
It's all about communication and really getting the information out there, and not only getting the information out to high schoolers, but also middle school, because I know that when I was in middle school, I was still interested in all the same things that high schoolers were, and really getting the word out there and spreading it. And even if you have people come into the classes and explain what that program or business is about, that's really nice, because then that really helps you open your eyes and notice that there are a lot more job opportunities out there than you think. Because I know that there are so many more than I know of that I wish I would know about. And so if we were able to have more people come into our classrooms and explain what those jobs are about, that would be really nice.
Any questions for the audience here, or anything else that you'd like to know of these students? Yeah.
So my question to you, and I don't know if it had been answered, but what do you want to do? Do you have a goal? Do you have a plan? I know it's kind of early, maybe in some of your education, but what do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, so my family has always been very involved in cooking. All of my grandmas were very talented with their cooking. My dad has his own business, his own barbecue business. He also has 3 other businesses that he has started. So I'm very, informed about how to be an entrepreneur and how to start your own business and the connections. And I was actually fortunate enough to host my own barbecue, and I did it on the 4th of July for 250 people. It was a wedding, so I was able to cook for them, do all the side dishes, do everything. So my grandmas have really sparked that passion and that fire. And being surrounded by good, healthy, and yummy food that just makes you happy has always been around me. And I would love to bring that joy and that happiness and make people feel that happiness and that, like, oh, I'm at home kind of feeling when you get that, oh, that's grandma's food. So I would love to start my own cafe. I would already know what I like to call it, Moo Moo's Cafe, after my grandma. So I would love to make it more of like a homey style, just like you can sit down there for hours and just hang out, eat food, have some good chicken noodle soup. So and so I plan on going to culinary school and pursuing, culinary. So,
Kelsey?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what I would like to pursue after high school. What I would like to do is just be able to help people, and I would like to continue to invest in animals and have a ranch, but I'm not sure what my career path will be.
So I am graduating next December. I'm going to be graduating a semester early. I'll be receiving a degree in agriculture communications, a writing minor, a business certificate, and a leadership certificate. With that, I'm hoping to continue working with students. I really like watching people's potentials grow. In the near future, that's what I'm hoping to do. But I also would love to be PR or something on communications.
Any other burning questions in the room? All right, well,
Tom's got
Tom,
one.
yeah.
Here, Tom. You probably don't need it, Mike. But
I got a big mouth. How about it? Yeah, get over here. I'm familiar with FFA and BPA quite a bit, but the YE program, are you three involved with that, or was that part of your background too within high school and college?
I am. It started last year, so it's a new program, and so I've really enjoyed it so far. It has taught me a lot of the soft skills that we've been talking about, and it's really helped you understand, how to work together in groups, but also gives you a little bit of that competition side. And so you do have to work a lot in groups and have to problem solve, which really helps you get that hands-on learning experience, and it's really beneficial, actually. I really like that class.
Kelsey, were you in that too?
I'm currently not enrolled in a class that has the YE entrepreneurship in it.
I was not, but it sounds cool.
Okay. I would like, and maybe the teachers here can explain a little bit more how that works, but how does that get incorporated into a school's curriculum? Is it purely an extracurricular program, or is it something that can be combined with existing classes? How does that actually work within the school system?
There is huge flexibility with YE. It can be extracurricular. In my class, since we're small, I change my classes every semester. So when I had the opportunity to teach YE, I taught accounting, and it was a year-long class, but then I switched it to entrepreneurship at the semester. And I always felt like my job, I've seen so many people go off and graduate and open businesses, and I felt like, oh, sure, they can read the financial statements, but they never really had that entrepreneurial training, like what do I really need to do, the cost accounting. It just ties it all together. And so it gives those people the ability that they could leave high school and start a business because they'd have the skills that they need. And the other day I was walking down the hall, and there was this third grader, and he had just come to school first day after break, and he had Pokemon cards, and he was so excited he could hardly wait. And he has trouble paying attention, but I sat in the hall with him. He read me every Pokemon card, and I'm like, I want him in YE. He could build a game. And he was only in third grade, but that's what YE does. It takes a kid who has a passion, and you can make him see you can make it happen, and you can build a future doing what you love. So I think it has great potential, and I just feel like I won the jackpot when I met Liz Markey and Jim Masker and Kylie. Thank you.
So in agriculture education, we have a 3-circle model, and we have classroom, FFA, and SAE. And so every kid has to have this project outside of class that they do. And one of them can be to work for somebody else. And so we have lots of kids who have jobs. And one can be to grow an animal or a plant or a garden or a whatever. And so they have this entrepreneurial part that they've had. And so in October at a teachers' conference, I was shown this YE, and I thought, oh, what a fit. Here is a curriculum, and I've seen lots and lots of what we call canned curriculums. You know, they give you the lessons, and all you have to do is teach them. And so I was skeptical. And I spent a lot of time looking at it, and I have to tell you, it is good. It is for an experienced teacher, for a new teacher. I can see it used across the board in classrooms. I don't care if you teach math, English, career tech, what you teach. This curriculum can be used to teach people skills, and it's good.
Well, thank you, Jody for taking the risk on Youth Entrepreneurs and this program. And I think I'd like to take an opportunity to issue a challenge to all of us in this room, whatever your position is. How can you reach out and engage with students? Is it maybe showing up? I don't know if you'd let us come and be a part of one of the exercises. Maybe it's coming judging at a competition, or perhaps just Skyping into their classroom. It's the new year, so perhaps set an individual goal of figuring out a way to engage with one classroom this year. So there you go. Thank you, students. Avery, Kelsey, Jenna, thank you so much all for being here, and enjoy the rest of the day.